Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's webinars. Well, webinar one, this week's webinars, rather. Today, we're going to focus on English. So, world languages has been a focus for most of Speakable's history. However, there is a growing group of people that are using Speakable for English as a second language, English as a foreign language. Teachers. So yes, we're going to focus on that, some of the settings, some of the tweaks here and there that will allow us to have a very nice experience at Speakable, specifically for English learners. So this is going to be today's focus. We have some teachers, well, some viewers on Twitter, on StreamYard, and on YouTube. So yes, let me know if you have any questions at any point. You can use the comment section in either of the, like any of these platforms. If you, also let me know what you teach. If you're an English teacher, if you teach other languages, if you teach multiple languages. So yeah, let me know if you have any questions, or tell us where you're coming from, where you're joining this from. So I myself, I am in Central Time, so it's 4:32 p.m. for me. And welcome. As we have viewers join in, let me give you like a little summary of what Speakable is and what it isn't. So yeah, if you are new, if you haven't really learned about Speakable in the past, Speakable is a website that will allow you to uh, create activities so that your students practice, and the activities will be auto graded. So it's going to give the students a safe space to practice, and maybe we have limited time in the classroom, so it's a good way to extend productive practice in and out of the classroom when time is limited. At the same time, because we have an auto grading system, it will allow teachers to save time in that as well, by showing the teacher like a summary and some analytics of what the student did, without having to grade one by one by one by one, each single recording or paper or whatever. You can do this all at once with Speakable. So yes, welcome everyone. You're welcome to participate in the chat section as well, in the comment section. So if you have any questions, let me know. But let me begin by sharing my screen. Very loud birds. Maybe you heard them. All right. So is this? Yeah, this is the right one. Okay. So let me know if you can see my screen. This is like the main screen that we have here. I was like, we have classrooms and recent activities, but you can access all the activities here in the library, all classrooms here. And but first, before we talk about like activities themselves, let me change the layout a little bit. We're going to focus on some settings that will allow you to set things up for English in a better way. So first thing is, when you're creating your account, or where you can view your settings here, there are a couple of things that can like help you get everything set up by default, like to begin with, so that you don't have to tweak things later in the activities. Number one is, you can pick your main language here. So I can pick whatever language, and this will be like my default language, the same as the subjects that I teach. So I can add several, for example, English and world languages, both. I teach both, so I'm going to add them. And this is important. So here you will be able to add what languages your students speak natively, right? So even though this is not an essential step, this is a step worth spending time in, because it will allow you to. Sorry, my dog wants to participate. It will allow your students to, or it will allow you to get the activities preset in the or the translations preset in the languages that your students already speak, right? So in my case, students speak Spanish, German, and Japanese. This will be relevant in a few minutes. So those are a couple of settings that will save you time later. Well, if you know that we're here, if you didn't know, you can also check the status of your subscription. I am an organization plan. If you have Google Classroom connected or disconnected, or Clever, if you signed it through Clever, but I recommend Google Classroom. And my data, if you have like all of the classrooms that you have already archived, they're going to be there. So they don't, let's say, waste space, or they clutter your screen in the classroom screen. So these are my active classrooms, and for my safe classrooms are going to be in the settings tab. Okay, so now that we have focused on the settings, now let's create an activity. So the first thing for English teachers is, your default language will show up here. So I selected this as English, and it is the default one here. So if you're teaching other languages, then you might have to, and if you have English as your default language, then you might have to change this. Again, it's worth doing this at the beginning, because it will preset everything from then on in the language that you're teaching. But in this case, I don't have to tweak anything. I just, it's already in English. Now, these are the three ways we can create activities. I'm going to focus on all of them, but I'm going to start from scratch so that I can show you every single feature individually. Later, we're going to focus on the AI section. So let's start with start from scratch. So the first thing you see when you create an activity is the the title. You can change the title here or here, and you can give it a cover. So let's give this ESL / EFL, and let's add a flag, English. British flag. British flag. Let's add this just as a symbol of the language that we're focusing on. Okay, cool. And let's create activities. So note that the language for me is in English, so everything by default is going to be displayed in English. We can change this as well, right? Okay, so let's create some content. Let's begin with multiple choice. Multiple choice, again, no, it's just you write the question. So what is the capital of England? And you're going to write the options. So it's going to be Dublin, London, Edinburgh. And I'm going to add another one, which is going to be Cardiff. Right? So all important cities, sure, but let's choose the correct one here. And if you have multiple correct answers, then just make sure that multi-select is there. And you also have the option for shuffle if you want the options to be randomized, so that A is not A for everyone and so on. Anyway, so nothing particularly special for English as a second language here. Just, everything will be in the language that you write it. So pretty self-explanatory. The repeat. This is the first card in which the language is important. And in theory, you can set the language independently for each card. But since we already did that for the entire activity here in the settings, right, then it's already set as English. Note that in this activity, you can also change the students' native languages. We can do this at the beginning in the teacher settings, but you can also do it in the general activity settings as well. Now, this is important because of some reasons I'm going to show you in the repeat card. So the repeat card is a very self-explanatory tool. You will write whatever you want here. So the capital of England is London, right? So you're going to type in something like that, and the students will be able to play it.
The capital of England is London.
And they will be able to repeat it. Now, because this is the first time this particular set of words is used, then you'll see the unverified button. But just because you see unverified doesn't mean it's not going to work. It will work. It's just that you have the options to test it first. So the capital of England is London. Cool. It's been verified now. Now it says verified here. Okay, cool. So as you can see, everything is set up to English at this point, right? But I can change the voice. If you didn't like this one, you can go into repeat settings and you can change the voice to a different one. So look at all the different accents that are here. So if you want to show your students different pronunciations and different ways to say things, this is particularly important for some spellings as well, then make sure you play around with this, like play around with the voices, check all of the different ones. Many native languages, many countries where English is a native language are included here. So yeah, feel free to experiment. Let's just try with Sally. It's going to be this voice.
The capital of England is London.
Okay, I'm going to use this one, right? Another thing you can do is if you don't want the students to hear this voice, you can record your own. Right, so this is particularly important for younger audiences. If your students want, if you don't want the students to be exposed to, say a different voice or something, because they are already comfortable speaking to you, then you can have this be your own voice, so that you don't rely on these voices, but your own. But here's where the settings come into mind. Like, remember that I said that okay, my students speak these languages. Then I can, and you can tweak them here, right? So this is one way where we can add the translation. So for example, if I click on this, there's nothing happens, of course, but if I click on this on German, like German is pre-selected as one of the languages that my students speak, so I can add that translation automatically, right? So I don't personally use this too much because I don't focus so much on translations when I teach a language. I focus on I try to have, if we're learning English, we only speak English in class. So that's what I do. But if you are interested in translations, and then you can have like a quick way into them here. But these three are available by default because those are the ones I selected. But if you know that you have a student who speaks, Mandarin, then you can add the language here, and it will be available for your students in the cards, in the translations as well, right? So there you go. Now we have Chinese. Yep. So you can add whichever languages and your students will also have like their settings there. So they can also, like, if you don't have your language selected here or their language selected, they will be able to do so. But it's always good to do it first. Like if you already know that your students speak this, and this language, then you add them here, either to your settings or to the class settings, so that they are these translations are available, at a shortcut to these translations is available, right? Now, not language specific, but you can also give the activity a specific explanation. So if you don't rely on translations, but you would still like your students to have more context, then you can click on add explanation, and it will show up in a very similar fashion to it did with the translations. So the translations or explanations will show up here. Your students will be able to click on it, and they will see the translation. Oh, I selected English. No, wait, German. Okay, so now they click here. Let me try to reset translation in German. Yes. And when you click on preview, the students will be able to see that explanation or translation here on the little chatty icon. All right. So again, that's if you're using translations. You can also add explanations, and you can change the language for each card individually. But anyway, all right. So that's where like the settings come into play. Like it's very important to know your students' languages, like native languages, if you plan on using those languages as support languages for them. Yeah. I don't use this too much, to be honest, but this is this is an option that you have there. Okay, so now let's go into the Respond card, which, let's be honest, it's the most important card at Speakable. This is like what most of your activities should contain, right? The Respond cards. So Respond cards are much more dynamic. So they will respond dynamically to your students' answer. So depending on the question. So it could be something like, how old are you, right? Now I can have the prompt be text or audio. You can record it yourself. So how old are you? Yeah. So I can record it myself, and I can insert it. And now, how old are you? This is the prompt. And you can test it yourself. Your students will be able to use see this. So you can use the preview to test it, or the lower section to test it. Now, this lower section is also where you will select how the activity will work, if it's a speaking activity or a written activity. So you can have both if you want. And writing, they have a limit of 1,000 characters. Speaking, they have a limit of 3 minutes, but by default, it's set to 30. So you can move the slider to, if you have a longer question, then of course, get it to 3 minutes. If you want to limit your students' answer time, then limit it to 10. By default, it's set to 30, and 30 is fine. It's perfect for what I need right now. So the way this works is your students will be heard, right? And the system will analyze their answer. So let me show you how this works. I am 35 years old. All right, I'm going to save my answer, and this is Speakable is going to process it for me. And take a look at this. Your response is clear and directly answers the teacher's prompt about your age. It's concise and easy to understand. Keep up the good work. Cool. Let me show you what happens when my answer is incorrect. Yeah, so I'm going to make the typical mistake a student would make in this situation. If you have Spanish native speakers as your students, you will know how often this happens. I have 35 years old. Yep. So typical answer, typical mistake. And let's see what the system does in this case. Okay, so your response provides the necessary information about your age, but it contains a grammatical error. Instead of saying I have 35 years old, try rephrasing it to sound more natural. Consider using I am 35 years old. Okay, so this is the feedback, and this is the correction. You can see it here. If you click on suggest a response, it will be I'm going to say a corrected / perfected version of the answer. because if there are no mistakes in the answer, that suggests the response will simply try to take things to another level. So if your students are doing short work of your activities, like the suggested response will still push them to the next level. Like it will show them more sophisticated vocabulary, more complex clauses or things like that that they could try using for a more a more thorough answer. Now, the rule here is the more complex the prompt, the more complex the answer is expected to be. So in this case, how old are you is pretty easy, right? But I can make things a little bit more complex. For example, describe the place where you live, right? And I can go ahead. I live in a house by the river, and I can see the river from my window. It's very green, and it's sometimes a little bit rainy like today, but in general, it's a nice cozy place, and my dogs have lots of green space to play. Okay, so I just wanted to give a random answer, and I'm going to show you what a more complex prompt with a longer question, or a longer answer rather, would do. So there you go. Your response effectively describes the place where you live, right? So if you have if you are finding that your students are getting away with very short answers or something like that, or you want to push them a little bit more, then you can add complications, right? For example, mention the architecture, the environment, or the immediate environment around the house, and whatever, right? So you can be as specific as you want, and the more specific information, like I live in a house, it's not going to be enough at this point, right? Because it would have been enough had I not added these extra descriptions or extra parts of the prompt. But if you want your students to elaborate more on the answers and to give you longer answers in general, then make sure you are requesting more information in the prompt itself, right? Okay, so this is, let's say, not language specific. So let's move back to language specific options or things that we can tweak. So number one is, let's take a look at this upper bar. So here we can change, we can remove auto grading. So if you simply want your students to have a space to practice and then for you to check the answers, then you can do that. But if you want Speakable to do the auto grading for you, then turn this on. It is on by default. If you click on feedback, then you will see these options. These two options are on by default, which are the grammar insights and the suggested response. These are the corrections that you saw, like where it highlights the error in orange and then and the cool parts in green, and the suggested response, which is the perfected version of the answer. If you want, you can turn them off. They are on by default because for the most part we want them, but there is a reason, or there are a couple of use cases to turn these off. For example, grammar insights, if your students are simply too young and they might not understand, like, oh, great use of the prepositions and whatever, they don't know what a preposition is, then maybe you can turn that off. But for the most part, for most learners, I would leave this on. Suggested response is an option that is sometimes tweaked by teachers who are not teaching languages, but for example, they're teaching, say, history, right? So I can ask a question in a test, right? And the question could be something like, what is in what year was America discovered, right? And if I have this on, right, and I want to really test if my students studied for the test or not, if they give the incorrect answer, then Speakable is going to give them the correct answer. It was discovered in 1492, right? So if I, as a teacher, don't want Speakable to spoil the answer for them, then I will turn this off. But for the most part, especially for language teaching, leaving it on is important. Now, this is the first part here in the feedback section that is specific to the language. So Wida, you can WIDA is let's say WIDA is a standard by the Wisconsin University. I'm not sure exactly what university, but it's like a standard used for evaluating English proficiency, right? So if you want Speakable to generate not only the feedback, there's just a response, but also an estimation of where the student is based on the WIDA proficiency levels, then you can do this, right? It is off by default because the not every single question of every single activity of every single class needs to be an assessment. But when you want this to be, then make sure you turn that on. If you're not teaching English, you're going to see two differences. Number one is this will not be WIDA, but it's going to be ACTFL. So the American standard for word languages, that's going to be the level assessment here instead of WIDA. Now, the other thing you can do here is you can change the feedback language to another language, right? So if your students speak Spanish, then you can set that up here. Now, because everything in my computer, in my Speakable is set to English, I only have English and English, right? But if I were teaching a different language, let me show you. Let me create another response card where the language is German. Yep. In the feedback section, I can change it from English to German, right? So by default, English, which is my language of choice here, my interface language, is going to be selected, but I can choose another feedback. So if your students are learning English, but they speak Spanish and they are beginners, and you think that maybe the feedback would be better appreciated, I guess, in Spanish, then you can change it as well. But in my case, I have everything set to English. So, but you can tweak that at any point when you want, like you can change the language. Okay, so those are the two, let's say, two features that are language specific, but there are more. So one thing that you like, if you want to try, like focusing on specific aspects of the English language, then tweaking autograding would be a good idea. So by default, the pass-fail autograding system is selected. And but what that does is it will give you those screens that we saw before, the green screen with a good job text, or the orange text with orange screen with the text of keep trying, or try again. And what determines if one screen or the other is given to the student is this. If the student's response is clear and concise and answer to teacher's prompt, and the grammar errors aren't sufficient to detract from the overall meaning of the response, then it will be considered to be a passing score. If it doesn't, it's going to be given the try again score. However, what if you don't want, if you don't want to, if you don't like this, or for example, if you see that this is too strict or too lenient, then you can define it. For example, I can add more criteria for the pass. So I can say the student's answer needs to contain at least 3 verbs in the past tense, for example. So this is something you could do to establish the rules that will determine if a student passes or not, right? So if you are teaching a specific tense or something like that, make sure to add it here, right? And if you add it here, then even if the student's answer is fine, it will not be considered acceptable until 3 verbs in the past are used, right? Because you determined that was one of the aspects that will give the students a pass, right? But you can do this for whatever. You can make it more lenient, you can make it more strict, you can make it more specific, or like for a specific tense, like in this case, what I did here. But you can also do something different, which is, okay, what if, despite all of my criteria and my I guess, the way to determine if something passes or fails, it's still going to be pass or fail, right? So it's going to be a 1 or a 0. But what if you want to have a more nuanced way to evaluate your students? What if you want to see if your students were given a fail because of grammar, because of fluency, because of irrelevance or relevance or whatever? Then you can change this from pass-fail to rubric-based. So rubric-based grading will allow you to not focus on a binary 1 or 0 pass-fail system, but in this case, you can set a range of numbers that are acceptable or that determine the student's success. By default, the Speakable Standard World Language rubric is selected, but in order to understand it or to tweak it, let's click on it. So I clicked on the rectangle, and this will open the rubric window. So this rubric has 3 fields: grammar, relevance, and completeness, and each of them will have 3 levels of proficiency for a total of 6 points. Each criteria will be awarded 2 points as a maximum. As you can see, what determines these. So beginner, intermediate, or advanced. So you can check the definitions, like, for example, advanced, grammatically correct or contains minor errors that do not affect understanding. But you know what? This is not enough. Let's say I'm going to create another one that's master, and it's going to be the student's answer contains no mistakes whatsoever. So that will increase, the potential points awarded for grammar to 3 for a total of 7 points, right? So this is the default rubric. You can still tweak it. But you can do the opposite as well. What if you don't want to add levels, or you want to remove levels, or you want to remove criteria, right? So if your students, if you want to focus if you want Speakable to focus on relevance and completeness, but you don't want Speakable to focus on grammar for this particular one, remove grammar, right? And now your students will be focusing on relevance and completeness, very important aspects for fluency, right? So you can also do that. And this is only the default one. You can check our library of rubrics. They are several, like the default one we saw, prompt evaluation, AP exam sections, WIDA speaking rubrics. So again, if you want to focus on the different proficiency levels according to WIDA, which are beginning, developing, expanding, bridging, reaching, and exceeding, then you can use the WIDA speaking rubric to see where your students are. So I would recommend using this for, I'm going to say, longer answers, just like the WIDA estimation. Because imagine if you have a very short answer, like your students are saying, oh yeah, how old are you? And they say 35. Well, that's, 35, the word 35 is not going to be enough to really assess someone's linguistic complexity, language control, or vocabulary usage, let alone hope to have a high score, like exceeding, only by saying 35, right? So in general, for rubrics and for the assessments, I would recommend using them in questions where a longer answer is expected, and number 2, a more specific grading system is needed. So for example, this is very language specific as well, if you want it to be. I have a rubric here that's specific for French, passé composé. I have one that's for student response evaluation. This was for artistic flair. This was for anatomy and science, right? But I have some that are specific to, for example, this one's specific to Spanish, right? Pretérito imperfecto. But I have more. For example, email writing and structure evaluation, important for many classes. CEFR proficiency rubric. So if you want to focus to evaluate a student's proficiency, but not based on WIDA or ACTFL, but the CEFR, you can do that too here. But let me look for more that are, this one is English specific, email register, irregular verbs. This one is English specific. I have more causative. Yes, I want my students to use the causative correctly, so I created a rubric for this. Same thing, look, with reflexive verbs in Spanish, short evaluation. You can do whatever you want. So in order to create your own, you can go into create rubrics, and you can tell the AI what you want, right? So I could say, I need a rubric that will evaluate my students' proficiency, specifically in, say, I don't know, present perfect. Yes. Also include general vocabulary and grammar criteria. Right? So I can tell the AI what I want and what I'm specifically targeting. In this case, it's going to be the present perfect. So the system is going to take a couple seconds to created, and once created, you can still tweak it either manually, like we were doing before, like by clicking on plus or removing one level or whatever, or you can tweak it using the AI. So it can say, okay, general vocabulary, general grammar, and present perfect. Cool. Please make this rubric in a way that has 5 proficiency levels per criteria and not 3, like you can see here. So I can still tell the AI to do things for me, or I can do them manually. That's completely up to you. You can also tweak if the first score is 0 or 1. This is important if you're tallying up scores and you have multipliers. If you multiply something by 0, you're going to get into trouble. But if you want to focus on the way things are from the beginning, you can tweak it here or change it to 1. You can also score definitions ascending or descending, so that more points are a better score, or less points or fewer points are a better score. That's up to you. But anyway, so this is one rubric here that I have that is English specific. So let's use this rubric. You can use it in this card, all cards, or set as your default. In this case, I'm going to just use it in this card. And I'm going to change the prompt because this one will not force the present perfect. So it's going to be like, describe the status of your project. Mention what has been achieved and what hasn't yet. Okay, this is a good way to force the students into using the present perfect. We have the correct rubric, so let's try it out. Right now, my project is on track. There are many things that haven't been done, but others that have been completed. For example, the land has been bought, but I haven't yet begun design or construction of that project. I hope I will be able to do that very soon. Okay, so let's see. I used present perfect, but I didn't use it all the time. So let's see how strict it is. So you can test it yourself and see how things are working, and you can tweak it so that it follows what you would like to grade yourself, right? So you can have Speakable be an extension of you. So this is one of those cases where it didn't pick up on my things. Let me try again. Let me try this one again. So my project is on track. I haven't been able to start the design, but I have completed the requirements for the construction in that land. I hope to be finished with that very soon. Let me try again, because this one, it didn't catch me. I don't know if I did it too quickly or something with the clicks, but it didn't pick up my entire answer. Therefore, the rubric didn't really work that well. But let me try again. All right, it did now. So I can see that the rubric has picked up the different aspects that I determined separately. So in terms of present perfect, the student demonstrates a good understanding of present perfect using it in correcting I haven't been able and I have completed with minimal errors. Cool. General vocabulary. The student's vocabulary is good using appropriate and varied words such as on track, design, requirements, and construction. There's a slight repetition, the use of that, but it doesn't significantly impact the overall quality. And finally, grammar. The response has a few grammatical errors with clear, understandable sentences. The only minor issue is that slight awkwardness in the phrase. Be finished with that very soon, but does not hinder with comprehension. So as you can see, I did well. And I can see like the reasons why in this rubric. So if this is I would recommend that you add like a specific tense, but also general grammar, right? Because what if, for example, your student focuses so much on the present perfect that they kind of sacrifice general grammar or vocabulary? So you can set this in a way that that evaluates those independently, so that you can still have a good specific view of what your students are lacking and a general view of what your students need. And here it is the way we estimate that we didn't test before. So the student demonstrates linguistic complexity through the use of simple and expanded sentences, indicating the ability to engage in familiar topics. You can see the entire description. It's not generic, There are mentions of my specific answer here. So for example, However, there are some grammatical inaccuracies, blah, 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 and some examples of this. The vocabulary used is contextually relevant, but general rather than highly specific. Because of that, it will be 3 developing instead of a 4. So like it will give you the reasons why it's this specific WIDA level, right? So those are some things you can do here to tweak this specifically for English learners. You could also be specific in the way Speakable will be, say, forgiving. For example, if you want it to be more forgiving in terms of pronunciation, you can also determine these things in the rubric or here in the pass-fail I guess criteria. So for this, and you can give instructions to the AI to make sure that it looks for what you want it to look for. So those things are very specific to English. Let me just finish off with another response card, but one that expands. This is again not super English specific, but in general language specific, and where you can add AI context. So far we haven't been using pictures other than the cover, but I can use pictures in every single activity and every single question. So in this case, London was going to be probably the most relevant one. So cool picture. And again, this one, another one. Let me use a video this time, right? So London, I'm going to use a video for this. And cool. But now for this one, I'm going to focus on something else. No, actually this one. We have too many cards. Let me focus on this one. Is this the right language? Let me see. It's in English. Cool. So I'm just going to add a media section here. Let me do it with a video this time. And I'm going to add a video about, I don't know. Let me see. Impressionist art. Yes. So Impressionist art in 8 minutes. Okay, cool. I like this. I'm going to use this to add this video here. And I'm going to ask my students comprehension question. It could be like, what is this video about, right? So it could be like general comprehension, or it could be something specific, like according to the video, what are the top 5 Impressionist artists in the history, in history of art? Yeah, you can do that. So specific or general. But before, right now, these two are disconnected things. To connect them, click on AI context and then on generate. And what that will do is it will merge the video with the prompt. So now Speakable will know what the video is about. You could do this with images, with text, with audio files, with podcasts, with whatever, and it will work. So in order to see how it works, you can hover your mouse over it and you will see like a little summary of what it is. So Impressionism in 8 minutes by Curious Muse explores the revolutionary impact of Impressionist artists in the 19th century who blah, 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 right? So you know that Speakable knows what the video is about. And remember, it's not just general information. It's not just this summary. It's specific information. So right now you see, you don't see a full transcript of the full 8 minutes. No, it's just a summary, but it will know the 8 minutes. So you can ask something that is, happened exactly in minute 3 and 15 seconds. That's something you can do. So again, even though this is not English specific, this is relevant for many languages. However, again, because my language for this software is set to English, all the context is in English. However, you can add a video in English, but ask a question in a different language, right? So according to the video, what happened to blah, blah, blah. So you can do this. Even though it's displayed in English, it will work in any language. So I can change this exercise into a Spanish question and add questions so that my students, even though they can watch the video in English and they can answer the everything in Spanish. If you want to do that, you can. Again, I tend to stick to the target language exclusively. So if I am teaching German, I would add a video in German. If I am teaching English, I would add a video in English. But anyway, so those are some of the things that you can do that are English specific. As a little summary, remember the WIDA level estimate and rubrics. They are available here by default. Let me show you again how to get to the WIDA rubric. And WIDA is English specific. So there you go. WIDA speaking rubric, WIDA level estimate. Those are very cool. Remember to also tweak the settings within the activity. You can change the voice of the entire activity. You can change the languages that your students speak so that the translations are quickly accessible to them. And yeah, you can also, before we wrap up, you can also check the Discover tab to see what teachers are doing in that language. So you can filter by language here. And this is already in English because this is my standard. And you can check what other teachers are doing. So a warm-up speaking one. This is another speaking activity. This is greetings and farewells, right? So I can use any of these and edit it and continue with them. Remember that if you want these to be available in Discover, you can publish it. But if you want them to be private, you can also do that. And you can look for specific topics, right? So I don't know, like past tense. Let's see if there's something that's labeled past tense. Yes, there are several teachers that have already created activities in the past tense. So I can take a look at what they have done and use that as inspiration for my own. Something else you could do, though, that is not necessarily inspiration, is you can create an activity using AI. So this is the activity we're working on. Let's go back to edit them. And you can click here on create with AI or on the AI creator, and you can simply tell Chatty what you want. We're going to have, like, there is another webinar that is specific about the AI creator. So I'm not going to go into lots of detail, but this is the way it works. So I need, hi, Chatty. Hi, Chatty. I need an activity about present perfect for intermediate English learners. Please include 5 cards of each type. The context is what is to talk about what they have, what sports, for example, what sports they have or haven't yet done, right? So that I'm going to tell, Chatty the level, the language, the objective, and sometimes like specific amount of cards. So yes, this is cool. Does this format? Yes, proceed. And Chatty will be able to create the activity for me, right? So you can add all of them at once. For example, I'm going to click on with images and add all. These are all the repeat cards. Chatty's still working on the rest. So these are all the response cards, again, with images, add all. And finally, the multiple choice and add all. And remember how it took us a while to have 4 cards? Well, now in a couple seconds, we have all of these cards. So, and take a look at this. All of them are in present perfect. All of them include sports. All of them include an image, even though sometimes the image is not the best choice. For example, this one has nothing to do with rugby, so I would delete this one and add my own. But this is like, Chatty is a very good way to begin an activity. So rugby, and I can add I can add the pictures of my own. I can add the videos and the AI context if necessary. So yes, rock climbing, correct image was chosen. Oh, cool. Which sport have you tried for the first time recently? And this is a very cool, I guess, inspiration for your students. Sport you have never done but you would like to try. Rowing, very nice image of rowing, actually. Baseball, and this is the correct image. So as you can see, it took me seconds, and we automated the process of creating this activity. I can check everything here to make sure that it fits my needs. But again, you can, in this case, my language was English, but I specifically said that this was for English. If you didn't mention this, then Chatty will ask, okay, well, cool, I can do that for you, but let me know the language. So anyway, you can use Chatty as well. And if you tell everything that everything will be in English, then everything will be set already by default. Like, you can check that all the questions are already going to be correctly set to English. So that's another way you can automate things with the AI creator. Chatty is super helpful. So yes, that's something else you can try doing. But anyway, that's all I have for you today. So I wanted to ask you now, do you have any questions? Do you have any concerns? If you are already using Speakable for teaching English or any other language for that matter, let me know. Is there anything I can help you with? Do you have, I don't know, questions about how to use the organization plan? Speaking of which, the organization plan is, of course, a school-wide thing, a school-wide plan or district-wide plan. So if you're interested in trying this tool for not only for you but the entire school, remember that some of the features that I talked about today are are exclusively available in the organization plan. So if you're interested in trying these out and at a school level, let me know. Then we can set something up with the rest of your teachers, with your curriculum person, your department head. We can use something like that. The use cases for this, we have K-12 schools, we have more college level stuff, we have adult learning as well on board. So this works for whatever you want, but the tools are there, like for the flexibility for you to create the content that you want your students to do, and the auto grading is there to save the time, to save your time. So yes, I see no questions for now in the comment section. So yeah, I'm going to stop here. However, remember that if you're interested in trying a pilot, let us know. If you're not watching this live, but on YouTube later, then remember that our website is speakable.io. You will have lots of info there. And if you want to have a pilot, there's a space for you to try that out with us there. If you're already a user, then we have like a live platform for support there as well. So yeah, that's all I have for you today. Thank you very much for attending this session, either live or recorded on YouTube. And I hope you have a great rest of the day, and see you tomorrow. We're going to focus on prompts for the AI grading, and that's going to be like how to master AI grading. That's going to be tomorrow's topic. So feel free to join same time tomorrow, 4:30 Central, and we will have more sessions next week as well. Have a good one. See you tomorrow.